Hi there, thanks for joining me. In this video, we'll take a look at the undo feature. Most people who work on a computer should be familiar with the undo feature. You use it when you're typing things and when you're entering things into your computer to search on the internet. It's also available in digital painting, and it allows you to start drawing, and if you decide there's something you don't like, you can always undo it. So maybe I can give this little stick figure here some hair and then decide that I don't like the hair and do an undo. So I can go to Edit and do Undo Brush Stroke or ctrl+z, and that'll undo incrementally. Each time I press ctrl+z, it'll undo as many undos as I have set on my computer. So that setting by default, you can get to it under Preferences in the Edit menu. The default setting for undos is under Performance, and it is normally 32, which is a lot of undos. Having this many undos, or having a very large number of undos, will impact performance. So what that means is your computer has to store 32 brush strokes, or 256 brush strokes, or 4 brush strokes each time you make a brush stroke. And each time it saves one of those brush strokes, it's going to make your file size bigger, and it's going to make Painter work slower. So it's generally pretty good to set your undos fairly low. You definitely don't want to crank them up too high. I keep mine at 9. I think 9 is a good number to where there aren't too many things I'll do where I'll do more than 9 brush strokes and then decide, oh wait, I didn't like that, and go back. And if I do happen to do more than 9, then I'll just have to bust out my eraser and erase a little bit of it, and that's not the end of the world. But I think 32 is a very high number, and I don't think it's a good number to use. I think you should use a lower number like 9, because you don't want to spend all day undoing and redoing and going, okay, no, I don't like that, let's try again, no, that's not good. And you could really spend forever when it might just be easier to use something like the eraser or another tool to just fix one little mistake rather than have to redraw the whole thing. Or it might even be easier just to be spontaneous and just live with your mistakes. That's kind of part of art. You know, you don't need to be so nitpicky. Just kind of go with what's there, and if there's something you really, really, really don't like, just fix that. Don't worry about all the details necessarily, because those little mistakes people like sometimes. So I'm going to trash my little punk rock guy here, and we'll take a look at some other alternatives to undoing. Let's say we're making a shape here. Oops, I'll make a new layer for that. Obviously, we can use our eraser to kind of correct this shape. If we wanted to make some kind of different shape here, we could do that. But our eraser might not always be the best tool. We could also use one of the distortion tools to manipulate our shape and stretch it out and change it in different ways. So you don't always have to work additively, you can work subtractively. You can subtract from your shape or from your image to get the shape that you want, rather than try to draw that same shape additively, which works fine too for some people, but you might end up spending a lot of time wasting a lot of steps by going to the eraser and erasing, and then going back to the pen and then drawing, and then going back to the eraser and erasing, or maybe doing some undos and erasing again and doing more undos. If you're just working back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on the same thing forever, you're never going to get anywhere painting. It's going to take you a really long time to make a painting, and it's not going to be as much fun as if you can kind of get a little quicker at what you're doing and paint more efficiently. Another way to subtractively paint would be to use a mask. So I have this layer here, and I'm going to add a mask to it. And if I paint inside of a mask with black, make sure I'm inside of the mask by clicking on the icon here. If I paint inside of a mask with black, let's say using the sponge, it will erase areas of that layer. Could use the chalk for that. So, you know, if I wanted to, I could refine my shape that way too and get some different effects. I have more extensive videos on masking and subtractive painting that you can check out. I'll put links to that in this video description, but this one's just going to be kind of short and about the undo. So I'm going to do a few undos here and go back to before I did all that stuff. And I've reached my limit of 9, so no big deal. I'm just going to delete that layer. Now, one of the good things is rather than have a whole ton of undos, if you work on individual layers here, you're not risking quite as much, because within each layer is contained a piece of artwork. So if I want to do something risky, let's say this title, like put an outline on it, I could work on the same layer, which wouldn't necessarily be the best thing to do, but I could do that. And I'd have to be really, really careful, because if I mess up like here, I got to do an undo and I got to start over. And I might just end up doing a lot of undos trying to get this perfect. Okay, there we go. Doing all right, doing all right. No, I messed up there. Got to do an undo. Or I could take out my eraser. But now look, I'm erasing some of my blue because all this is on the same layer. What I should have done is just made a new layer and paint on that layer. And now it doesn't really matter, because if I mess up my line, it's going to be pretty easy to fix, because I'm not going to be interfering with this blue layer that's underneath. So if we go here, I'm also not feeling as cautious, because I know that I'm not going to mess anything up. So I can go through here and patch a couple places if I need to. If I need to erase, I can erase a little bit with my eraser, or I could use my distortion brush and just distort it into the shape I want. I could even use the distortion brush to go ahead and just keep pulling this line and making my shape too if I wanted to, if that made it easier. So there are a lot of alternatives to undoing. Undoing is something that I generally do here and there, and it's usually for little details, like if I was putting little hairs on something, like that first stroke I didn't come out right, but this one looks a little better. And if there's one I don't like this one here, it's too thick, then I'll do an undo. Or if I'm experimenting with something, I might try it out and then I might do some undos like that. So I'm not spending all day undoing and redoing and undoing and redoing just to get a perfect shape. I find other more efficient ways to do that, and you should be doing the same. And if you watch my videos, you can learn some more of those techniques. So if you found this information useful, take a quick second to like this video or share it on YouTube or Facebook, and that'll make it easier for other artists out there to find this information. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.